Thank you for joining us again and welcome back to Explorer. Wherever you're watching us from around the world, I salute you and appreciate every subscriber and more importantly, the incredible likes that you guys continue to support this channel from a whole lot of things. And more importantly, you've taken time from your busy schedule. Listen, folks, Africa is experiencing a challenging time in its history. And when transformation comes, it will meet a lot of roadblocks. At the moment, the continent of Africa is experiencing incredible pushback from global partners. Here we talk geopolitics and how Africa continues to navigate these murky partnerships, whether those are coming from partners who consider the continent not to have its own particular voice, or Africa not to showcase itself globally and ensure that the continent of Africa has risen and is asking some questions that geopolitical partners like the United States of America and a whole lot of other partners who do not agree with Africa's own position in a whole lot of areas, whether it's in climate change, in economic expansion, in financial issues, talking on the reason why African countries continue to borrow at a staggering rate and pay incredible interest, of which at this moment the continent of Africa has said, I want to be on the table. I don't want to be in the menu. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because it comes at a time when the United States of America has made it clear it would not be inviting the country of South Africa. South Africa is a strategic country in the continent of Africa. You may like them or you may not, but we are talking strategic engagement here. South Africa led the delegation of African leaders to the country of Russia and Ukraine. South Africa, a strategic country regards to its position economically, Africa's largest economy and one of Africa's leading members in the BRICS. This country of South Africa is the United States of America's largest trading partner in the continent of Africa. South Africa has been the landing spot for most American businesses who are spread across the continent of Africa. Make no mistake, South Africa has demonstrated leadership in regards to the current G20. We've seen the United States of America. According to Professor Jeffrey Sachs, the United States is throwing tantrum regards to the country of South Africa. A lot of questions are being asked why the reason this particular move by the United States of America. I myself, I may not have some answers, but go back to the previous administration under Mr. Joe Biden. We've seen South African come under tremendous pressure, whether it's relationship with the country of Russia, China, or more importantly, the recent South Africans' own particular move to take the country of Israel to the ICJ. Again, there are a whole lot of other issues. Some may not agree with South Africa's own position, but however, banning a founding member from G20, I think the United States of America failed to recognize that South Africa's own voice at the moment is not going to be slowing down anytime soon because the global partners are observing this, that it might be just beyond the G20. To get more context on this, let's go to South African-based television station so we can have perspective and we will dive into more analysis. Let's roll this clip.
Let's get some breaking news now as the United States says it is not inviting South Africa to participate in next year's G20 events. President Donald Trump has confirmed this on social media platform, or rather Truth Social. Trump also says the U.S. will stop all payments and subsidies to Pretoria, accusing the country of targeting white farmers and confiscating their land. This would be the first time in the G20's history that a member country is excluded from the gathering of world leaders. The development comes after the U.S. refused to attend this year's G20 meeting in Johannesburg following accusations by American officials of human rights violations in South Africa, claims that the government has rejected. Let's get more reaction right now. Our U.S. correspondent Simon Marks joins us from Washington for an update. Simon, good to have you on the program this evening. Having been on the ground in Johannesburg for the G20 and fast forward now to Trump's announcement that the U.S. will exclude South Africa from the 2026 G20, essentially punishing Pretoria for hosting. How seriously is that being taken globally right now?
Well, I think that this is now going to be a massive challenge for all of those international leaders that did attend the G20 last weekend in South Africa, the vast majority of whom hailed President Cyril Ramaphosa for not just his handling of the summit, but his handling of the entire year that South Africa occupied the presidency of the G20. That focus in the final leaders' declaration, 52 mentions of Africa contained in that document, and all sorts of work that is now supposed to continue, and a handover that is due to take place between South Africa and the United States, including basic procedural stuff. For example, South Africa needs to hand over the G20 website to the United States, which next month will begin its presidency of the Group of 20. It is far from clear that Donald Trump actually has the capacity to do what he says he is doing in this message on Truth Social. He's making it clear that this is a repercussion for yesterday's low-level handover of the gavel from the G20 summit at the level of lower-level civil servants, of course, following South Africa's refusal to accede to an 11th-hour demand last Thursday night for America's chargé d'affaires at the US Embassy in Pretoria to be allowed to attend the closing ceremonies of the G20 summit. President Trump says, at my direction, South Africa will not be receiving an invitation to the 2026 G20, which will be hosted in the great city of Miami in Florida next year. Actually, as we've already reported here on Newsroom Africa Channel 405, it's not being hosted in Miami. It's being hosted in Doral in Florida, a city right next door to Miami, at President Trump's own personal golf club.
Make no error, South Africa has come under incredible pressure considering the recent comment by the United States of America's press secretary calling the South Africa's own particular discussion, talking about the president of South Africa, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa's own comment where he was talking of if the United States will attend or if the US's delegation or if Mr. Trump going to come. South Africa would have loved to see the United States of America President Mr. Donald Trump attending this particular G20. But every expert is saying that this goes beyond the G20, banning a member who is a very solid partner in the G20. I wonder what the European partners will be thinking at the moment if the United States of America has gone rogue regards to its foreign policy, engaging South Africa, singly out Africa's own largest economy. I'm not talking about the internal issues in South Africa. South Africa has its own difficulties and challenges. They will be dealing with all of those issues, whether it's corruption or some particular concern regards to the way the citizens live in the country, talking about the accusation coming from Mr. Donald Trump. But what I'm saying here is a country from the continent of Africa that has delivered an incredible G20 summit that other partners have congratulated South Africa's own particular resolve, despite the challenges. And the United States of America sees this as a problem, not inviting a founding member. I think the US failed to recognize that, according to the words of Mr. Lamola, South Africa's foreign minister, that the world cannot stand in one place just to wait for the United States of America, that the world will move without the US. Mr. Trump, making that particular publication on his Truth Social, has some consequences in regards to US's own foreign policy. Let's play this clip.
Let's talk about the story that broke overnight. The presidency described as regrettable US President Donald Trump's intention to bar South Africa from attending the G20 Leaders Summit in America next year. South Africa handed over the G20 presidency to the US earlier in the week. The US boycotted the G20 summit in Johannesburg at the weekend, accusing Pretoria of human rights abuses against Afrikaners. However, G20 leaders adopted the declaration. Now, for more on this decision by the US, let's speak to SABC News specialist correspondent Sophie Mokoena, who actually at the moment is in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, which is hosting an international conference on women in business. But Sophie, I know you are busy, but this certainly is one that we were anticipating while we were covering the G20. We knew something was going to come from the US, but did we expect this angle that they are taking, this kind of level of barring and not inviting South Africa to the next G20 summit?
quite busy on international front yesterday with the Guinea-Bissau coup, and now later it was President Trump with this announcement. The issue here, Lian, is that the leaders did anticipate that it's going to be a rocky one from the 1st of December when officially America takes over. Remember, at this moment, South Africa is still holding the presidency of the G20. US will officially take over on the 1st of December. And therefore, when you look at the communique at the bottom, that paragraph gives an indication that the leaders were fully aware that it might be a difficult one with the outgoing South Africa having to participate in the US as part of the Troika, because with the G20, you don't have the Secretariat, you have Troika, the outgoing, the current, and the incoming. Therefore, it's South Africa, America, and the United Kingdom. That is why if indicating throwing forward to United Kingdom. However, when you look at how the G20 was formed, there was no provision for expulsion. And they did try to expel Russia after that war in Ukraine started. But to date, countries of the North who wanted Russia to be expelled, they couldn't do it because there's no provision. Secondly, this is a bilateral issue. It cannot be used as part of the groups or the multilateral gathering. And therefore, Donald Trump will have to understand that this is a bilateral issue. The only way he can bar South Africa is refusing to grant visas to those who are supposed to attend the meetings to the lead up to the summit of heads of state and government, and also refuse the delegation during the heads of state and government meeting visas. The State Department will have to do that, but there is no provision for such.
Africa, it is about time for you to continue to navigate the complexity, like I've pointed out, and look for partners that can provide you the alternative at this critical time in your history. Make no mistake, other partners around the world are observing Mr. Trump's own particular engagement with the country of South Africa in particular, talking about Nigeria, who was so cozy with the United States of America. Nigeria has come to realize that the United States is not as a strategic partner as it once was. The current decision or the current tweet by Mr. Donald Trump, the President of the United States of America, singling out South Africa not being invited, or not, that they will not invite South Africa to the G20 of next year, I think from my own perspective, and other analysts will agree, this is the fundamental blunder from the United States of America's own foreign policy. I think the US is taking it personally from the geostrategic point of view. And the country of South Africa, a major African economy, one of the countries that small nations across the region are watching up to regards to other aspects, talking about global policy. If the United States of America can push back and forth Africa's largest economy, I think sometimes it goes a long way to also reveal to the continent of Africa that the United States of America under Mr. Donald Trump administration is bent to put the continent of Africa in a position. Let's play this clip.
He goes on to say South Africa has demonstrated to the world they are not a country worthy of membership anywhere, and we are going to stop all payments and subsidies to them effective immediately. He's made that threat several times before, but it was only last weekend that his own government announced it was contributing $4.6 billion to the Global Fund, something that was a bit of a surprise when the news was announced. This social media posting again makes entirely false allegations against the South African government. It accuses the South African government of killing white people and randomly allowing their farms to be taken from them, and it accuses the New York Times and other media houses here of covering up that genocide that President Trump falsely claims is taking place in South Africa. So a big challenge now for European leaders and other world leaders. Are they going to go to Florida next year if South Africa is shut out?
Which brings me to my next question. Do other G20 members or leaders view it as a valid political move or just as a destabilizing power play with little legitimacy, the US having snubbed this meeting last week?
Well, I think the latter. I mean, look, it's not even clear he's got the authority to do this. South Africa is a founding member of the G20. It's far from clear that the incoming presidency can simply say to a long-standing member of the G20, you're not going to come to Florida. And certainly, it's far from clear that Donald Trump can issue that decree without setting the stage for other countries to decide if they're going to be willing to attend that G20 summit. I mean, there's ethical issues surrounding that summit. It's going to be held at his own personal golf club, which raises all sorts of ethical dilemmas for world leaders as to whether they're actually going to show up and patronize his own business, even as he continues to conflate America's national interest with the private personal interest of his own business organization. Now, Trump says he's not going to make any money out of hosting the G20 at his golf club next year, but clearly it will allow the golf club to market itself for many years to come off the back of having hosted an event like that.
It's been talked about. The United States of America's foreign policy in the corner of Africa always being activated when you have Russia and China and some European partners who are involved. Considering the recent conversation by the United States of American professor Jeffrey Sachs, who spoke on the United States of America's own global influence, talking about a whole lot of other issues. However, the country of Russia and China's involvement in the continent of Africa is always influencing the United States of America's foreign policy from a whole lot of areas. Mr. Trump coming to power, basically cutting aid in a whole lot of other issues, and like he said recently, that South Africa will be paying the price in a lot of other areas, like he's mentioned also that he will be cutting aid. I think African countries should come to the point where they should be realizing that the United States is not as strategic as it used to be. We've said this over and over. The US's own foreign policy is based on its own interests. I wonder how that's working out. The United States is just rolling the carpet for other major powers like China and some partners across the European Union, including the country of Russia and emerging Turkey. South Africa, I think at this moment, will come to realization that they have to be revising and devising other means, more importantly, diversifying their economy and looking for new markets that can provide them the alternative, because the United States of America is not going to be backing down anytime soon.
But secondly, the false narrative and fake news of genocide of white South African has been dismissed by many South Africans, including the groups that are aggrieved about what is happening in South Africa. Both AfriForum and Solidarity have dismissed the issue of a genocide. The leaders who were here of powerful nations go to their social media post. It was almost like they are promoting South Africa and pushing back. All of them painted a rosy picture about the country, how they were received, and the discussion, and the fact that only Argentina had a dissenting voice on adoption of the communique speaks to developed countries, the friends of the United States of America, members of the G7, the developing South, the BRICS nations that are part of the G20 rallying behind Pretoria. And therefore, I think that's where the issue is.
Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think in regards to this back and forth with the United States of America and the country of South Africa, and why South Africa should stand its grounds in some areas and continue to lead in a whole lot of areas, talking about its foreign policy. The United States may not agree with the country of South Africa, but South Africa is an African country that is in the BRICS. It's an African country who is in G20 as a founding member, and the United States of America is not going to be doing anything about it. I will be looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.